Great. Well, it's lovely to be with you. My name's Brendan. I'm rector at Ffant-with-Eridge, which is it's the most northerly parish in our little bit. We're right outside Tunbridge Wells. 3 little villages, and in total we have about 1,800 people in the whole parish, which I'm told is the smallest population parish. But don't tell the bishop, because he might give us another one or something. So anyway, is it not the smallest? What have you got?
Fairwalk.
Oh yeah, Fairwalk is small.
500-600.
Oh well, you win then. But anyway, ours is one of the smallest. Anyway, so a little background from me. I'm Sussex born and bred. I've always lived in villages. I grew up in Linfield. I've pretty much been in the countryside my whole life. I've lived on a farm, been to school which had a farm. I went to agricultural college. I studied blacksmithing at the college, and our blacksmith shop where I worked was on a farm. So I really enjoy the fact that I get to serve in a village and a countryside which is just part of my heart in Sussex, really. I got to Ffant about 2.5 years ago, and I don't have any desire to go to a town church ever in my life. So what I'm thinking is, how do we, I have great ambitions for church. How can we grow a really significant ministry for God in the villages that I feel passionate about? And that's what I've been thinking about these past couple of years as I've been here. I want to tell you where we are now at Ffant with this idea of Forest Church, and then give you a little bit of background about how we got there and why we got there and what we were thinking as we were doing it. So let's get some pictures. So this is what we don't call it Forest Church, we call it Festival Church, mainly because when I looked up Forest Church, it didn't seem to signify an actual service necessarily, and we are doing an actual service. It's a service, the word service outside, very informal, but it is an actual service. This is us doing it with our little marquee here, and it has all the elements of a service. It has confession, it has the readings, it has a preach, which is about 20 or 25 minutes long, but it's cut up into bits, because 7-8 minutes bits. Then I get people to discuss round tables about a question that I might put them. So it's a very informally led, but it has all the elements of an actual service. So I want to make that clear. This is a service, and we have kids as part of it. This is one of the highlights. So this is our kids. They meet outside as well, and we do. It's like a forest school style Sunday school for that. So instead of going to Sunday school and getting out the paper and colouring in, we never have any paper at all. They're whittling things and things like this as part of the crafts that they do to emphasise the teaching that's going on. And both adults and children, we're learning about the same passage. We stick with the same passion, we do the same thing together. So our hope is that when we start together, we finish together. It feels very much a family-orientated thing as we do that together. And it was hugely popular, particularly because of the kids. The kids just loved doing this stuff outside, and we were averaging like 20 or 25 kids coming each week. We do it every week. Each week in there. We only have 90 children in the school, so it was quite a significant percentage. I mean, one week we got 36 kids. It was just crazy. So it just clicked with people where we are. And here's where we are now. This is, as of this week, this is our new teepee that we bought to do outside church in, which we call Festival Church. And so I wanted to, this is where we are now, this is what we do. I want to give you first what was our goal. Why were we doing this? What was our vision? Although COVID helped us to do this, we already were thinking about this before COVID started. So what was our goal? Well, there were 3 things, and actually what Mark said on place is really important here. We wanted to take people together in our place to worship God. And I would describe our vision for, Festival Church or Forest Church or whatever it is, as hopefully, my idea is that it's a full-orb vision. It's not just that we want to create a wonderful loving and social village and friendships in there. We absolutely do that. And we don't just want to create an amazing space, and we are creating an amazing space in the church land that we're doing. It's not just that we want to. Our goal isn't even just to get bums on seats in church either. Our goal is that people will come to know Jesus and worship him. It's deeper connecting with each other, a deeper connection with our sense of place and where we are in our village, and a deeper connection with God. People, place and worship, and drive us all to worship. Psalm 95:6, "O come, let us worship and bow down, let us kneel before the Lord our Maker." And it's not even that someone just becomes a Christian. That's just the start of the journey. We're leading them to deeper worship of God. Because that's where we're going, isn't it? If you think about Revelation 7, I'll just read it. After this I looked, and before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people and language, standing before the throne of God and the Lamb. They were wearing white robes, and they were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." And you see right at the end in Revelation, all God's people come together in a place for worship. And that's what we're trying to, that is the sort of, I want people almost to glimpse that heavenly reality when they come to us at Festival Church. And how do we achieve this goal of bringing people into our place, into the worship of God? What I wanted to say here is, we want to make connections between place, people and God in the service itself. So often I think in our mission strategies we compartmentalise our vision. So we say, well, we're going to do worship on Sundays, and then we're going to do, Wednesday we're going to have coffee. So we'll do coffee morning Wednesday, and we'll do our sort of people stuff. And then during the week we might have volunteers caring for the churchyard or whatever that is. And what we're hoping to try and do is bring some of all those elements into one place where we do that together as a church. What can do that? So COVID actually helped us think through some of the advantages of doing that. Before we started our Forest Church, our Festival Church, we were thinking about doing a forest school. We have a youth minister, and we have another lady who had trained as forest school instructors. And so our idea was, we're going to do a Saturday morning forest school, or an after-school club forest school. And during COVID, we had, the problem was, at one stage, the youth minister could only do one thing in person. There was this, I don't know if you remember this, there was one thing he was allowed to do in person. And we were like, well, what's that going to do? What's that going to be? And we're like, well, it's got to be Sundays. That's got to be your one in-person thing. And then we're like, but we really want to do this forest school thing in the week. What? And then it evolved, and we thought, well, maybe we'll just try and do the forest school thing on the Sunday and do an outdoor Sunday forest school thing. And we weren't actually even thinking about doing that, because I don't know why we weren't. And now it seems to make a lot of sense. But at the time we were like, but we want to do that after school club. That was in our brain. But what we ended up doing is we had to do it all at the same time, because we could only do one thing. And it ended up being really helpful to engage children in the teaching that we were giving them about God and the worship of the church. For instance, some of the things we do as part of our Sunday school, just the other week we made bird boxes as part of the Sunday school. Often we would do this separately from, like, you might have a school club that did this. Why not bring that into the worship of the church? It is part of our mission as a church. So, we want to care for the whole person. So how have we done this? Let me tell you how we're doing. We're trying to build deeper connections with people, place, and God. And when it came to our parish has changed a lot in the last few decades, and it might be the same for you as well. I don't know how much your parishes have changed. What we found with the people that are in our parish is that they are not as connected with where they are or other people in the parish as perhaps they used to be. If you look back at our church, what people used to be, they're very connected because they're very connected with who they were and where they were, because it was very much an agricultural economy. 50 years ago, almost everyone either worked on the farms or had families on a farm or was just involved in that agricultural economy. But that has really changed in my parish. We have a lot of commuters now going to London and their families, a lot of city folk who just want to live there because it's a nice place to live and things like that. And so the whole demographics has changed. And what I found in our church is traditionally we were really good at engaging on that agricultural level. So we were doing the church calendar year was sort of going around that, to engaging people on that sort of agricultural calendar year. But people knew nothing about farming. You know, if I start talking to my parish about rogation, they literally have no idea what you're talking about, most of them. And so a lot of it has changed. And I wonder whether that might be the same for you. I mean, let me ask you this. Have any of you actually earned money working on a farm? Has anyone earned money? Couple? 2, 3, 4? Yeah, children have.
1 and 9.
1 and 9. Yeah. Yeah. But even here, there's not that many. There's only 4 of us out of 45 or whatever here. And yet, what we were traditionally doing in our parish is talking as if they knew stuff about that when they didn't. So, and it's changed hugely. I mean, I used to work on a dairy farm when I was a blacksmith. It had 800 milking cows, and it had a turntable, and just 3 people could milk 800 milking cows. One got the cow and brought it to them. The other one went in this turntable and plugged it in. I mean, I know nothing about farming, I don't know what you call it. And it would go around this turntable, be milked, and the other person would take it off and go. Only 3 people milked 800 cows 3 times a day. It wasn't that many people actually involved. And most of those were temporary workers from Eastern Europe. And so they weren't even engaged in our sense of place anyway. So what we found is we're having to work on people are more. What I found is people are more disconnected from these things in our parish than they were before. So they're not that connected. You know, they're not that sense of space. They have a sense of space where they live. But they've chosen it because it's a nice place to live, maybe. But they don't have any deep roots within the parish. They don't have deep roots in family. There's very few families whose roots go back that far. And so what we're trying to do as churches, and they've not got many friends, they've just moved in. We're quite transitory, aren't they? People move in and out of the village all the time. People don't stay there once you have this length of time in a house. It's not that long, even in my parish. What we're trying to do is help people to have a sense of place where they are in our parish with the church. Build that community in order that we can help people come to know and worship God. And so we're moving them on to engage them in those 3 things. It's the story of the whole Bible. Because if you think of back in the Old Testament, back in the Garden of Eden, you have the Garden of Eden with God's people worshipping God in a perfect world. That's where we came from. You think, and then I said it at the beginning, that's where we're going to in the future. And what my hope is that as we do this outdoor worship, engaging in that place, engaging people, we can give them a glimpse of that heavenly reality. One of the things that makes it difficult to engage people with God is when people do feel such disconnection with each other. If I was just to go outside of our church and just start preaching, it's going to probably have little impact, I imagine. If I just started preaching, they'd think, what's this weirdo? But if we are already friends with people, they're much more likely to engage us with the things of faith. Or if someone has a very deep connection with the village, we're much more likely to engage them with the things of faith. If they have neither of those things, it's very difficult to engage them in faith at all. So part of our mission then is to re-engage people with a sense of place in the world and sense of relationships as part of that mission towards worship. The other week, our over 40s football team went off, had a match against Langton Green. And I like this. Come and celebrate parish mediocrity. Which is just great. But if I was to ask you, who are the people that are going to engage with this? And it's going to be the people who are most engaged in the village, or most engaged with their friends. And people who don't really care about football at all might get really passionate about beating Langton Green because of the relationships and the place in which they have held. And if that's true for football, it's going to be only more so for our Christian faith, isn't it? If people engage in the village and our sense of place here, we can help them into Jesus. For those people who, and that you might have this, and those people who live behind their gates and you only really see them as they drive out the village, or those people who are working all daylight hours and whose weekends are just really precious with their families, what we're hoping to do is just to gather people outside, to slow down, to appreciate creation, the beauty of our parish, to invest in the local wildlife, and in doing that, in appreciating the land, the creation, the plants, the animals, and the children doing that as well. My hope is that people get that sense of place that they have maybe been lacking in our village. Get that community in which we all long to be a part of. I mean, so many people, their social lives are not geographically located at all. They're all on social media. Lots of people will go visit friends every weekend who live miles away. And so we're trying to help those local relationships come together as well. And so when previously as a church we split up these things, where we worship on Sunday or care for each other and have social time at coffee morning and in midweek, or we care for our garden or the churchyard spaces, where we previously did not try and tie those things together, we are actively trying to tie those things together, where for a short time on Sunday we get a little taste of heaven as we lead people into that. And my question is, why would you ever separate Witchling from worship? And that's what we're trying to do. Just bring God's good gifts, those creativity, that all those wonderful things together, drawing people in who we would not usually connect with, renewing a sense of community, rooting people in their sense of place and home, and leading them to worship. And I hope that some of this could be helpful about what we've done for other churches to think about as well. I do get that at front we're in quite a privileged position. We have a youth worker, we have a field, we have a hall, and we have toilets. And I totally get that not everyone has that, because our other church, Eridge, has none of that. It has no toilet or anything. So I absolutely get that. But in doing this, I think we've realised how simple some of these things can be. Because you might not have hall or facilities, but you might have a space outside in your churchyard, or get permission from a field next door to use. You don't need a lot of space. You can do it in like a 5 metre by 5 metre square area. If we're all worried about children jumping on graves or whatever, but it might be that you just have a small area where there's no graves and you don't need a huge amount of area. And with minimal cost, you can hook up a parachute or something. You don't even need a parachute, but it looks cool. You can hook up a parachute and you can do Sunday school outside. And for the children, we found that really engaged them. You can get a fire going, you can get some really simple outdoor crafts. I remember a few years ago, my family, we signed up to do an outdoor special needs forest school day. And because our middle son has special needs. And we went to this day. This is a professional forest school day. And the amount of resources they had was very little. They didn't even have a toilet. Their toilet was just a composting drop loo. And this was a professional forest school, place that we were going to. And it made me think, actually, maybe you can simplify it a bit. Maybe you don't need all those resources. They just did it in the woods with a hut. Well, not the toilet. Although maybe they did, I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. You don't need a huge amount of resources to be able to do that. You need people with a vision to do it. You don't even need a huge amount of volunteers to do it. And I suppose what I'm also saying is, we spend a lot of time and thinking, what's all these things that we could do midweek? And we have loads of volunteers to do the coffee morning and all these things that we're trying to do midweek. And, COVID just reminded me, if you can only do one thing really well, do Sunday amazingly well. Why not put all your resources into the Sunday service? So often we do things where we do, let's do steps towards getting to the service. We do coffee morning and and maybe they'll come to the service. Or we even do, and it even works with like Messy Church and things like that, where we do something, but they never really engage with the other people in the service sometimes. And my question is, do we need to split up those things? Could you make Sunday amazing for the whole family in that? And the way in which we've been trying to think about doing that is through Forest Church and just bringing some of those elements together. My dream is to have people arrive at our festival church where we would share food every week, we'd have drinks, people would just mingle. Maybe we'd have some activities. We have archery or something like that. And we teach skills. And then we have times of worship as part of that as well. And the kids go to their groups. We have discussion times and we have preaching, and we have the confession, we have all the bits of the service, and we share Holy Communion as well. And it becomes an event for someone to go to where all these wonderful things are, because God has, we have a big mission, and I want to bring those elements together for that. So hopefully that gives you a thing. The key thing is making connections with people in our place with our God. Just trying to bring those things together through Forest Church. I don't know if I've explained Forest Church that well or not, but so you can absolutely give me questions or anything, and I can maybe say a little bit more about it in that way. Yeah.
Hi, my name's John Fowler. I've worked with the Farming Community Network for more than 20 years, and I've got a question for you about farmers, because we're really worried about the mental tension and pressure on farmers. Wondering if you had any farmers in your congregation. And sort of thinking of how things were in the past, the farmer was very much involved with the church, and so many of these rural churches, and it seems as though they're almost redundant. And do you need your churches?
Thank you. Yes, we have farmers. In fact, my church, one of my church ones is an asparagus farmer, so he's really busy up until May. So he sort of drops off the radar through the asparagus season. So yes, we do, but it is a decreasing number of people that are involved in farming now, and so the sort of the emphasis for what our church is moving towards is the people that are there, that are actually there. Not to say that I don't want to engage with the farming community. We absolutely do. We're part of the community, totally.
Well, the big thing is that we need food, and we need to encourage the farmers and for them to be really good farmers and good stewards of what God has given them. And this is what our mission should be about to a large extent.
And I want to do that for the farmers, but I want to make that mission bigger than just the farmers, because that is only a handful of people that are in our congregation. You might be different, but it is only a handful of people in my congregation. I want to say to people, actually, not only do the farmers have responsibility for their hedgerows or whatever it is, we have that responsibility as well. So we planted up tons of trees in last year as well, as part of our things. But doing it together, not trying to separate farming from other things. We're all in it doing this. Yeah.
I absolutely love this, but the thought that keeps going through my mind is, to what degree is this seasonal? You know, wind, rain, snow.
Yeah, well, we did do it in the rain. Well, part of the reason we called it Festival Church is because we wanted people to realise you're going to get wet. You're going to get muddy and you're going to get wet. Yeah. So that's another reason we called it that. It is seasonal. In honesty, we haven't run it since December. We're starting again this week because it's just when it's really cold. Although now we've got our massive teepee, we might be able to do it. But then you just dress, particularly the kids. If you're just doing a Sunday school outdoors, and I'm not saying bring your whole congregation out outdoors necessarily, but you might do Sunday schools. You know, if the kids are dressed ready for it, they love getting outside even in the middle of winter, especially if you've got a fire. Yeah.
Just an observation really, some people might be a bit daunted by the lack of loo, number one, but our church has been composting, so that wasn't
I can highly recommend compost loo.
Compost loo.
We've only got one in Manchester, it hasn't all got to be top thing.
Yeah.
It's an educational point. The amount of water requires no water, and it makes people think about how ridiculous our water treatment is in general.
And my other observation was that it does sound daunting because you said you've got 2 forest school leaders who will therefore have insurance and everything, so people need to be a little bit aware. They can't simply start having fires and things because accidents happen. But you can make it lower key, like you said, and it's very simple. There's lots of activities, like just nature activities, might be the science and all sorts of things that you can do without it being. You can just start low key, just get going low key. Make it, more nature than necessarily whittling with knives and all that stuff. I imagine some people sitting here will be thinking, oh my goodness, and they in a way should be thinking, oh my goodness, because obviously it's got to be done properly. You've got resources of having, as you say, youth leader and forest school leader and whatever.
Yeah.
If you haven't got that, you can still adapt it to your own circumstances.
Thank you, yeah.
I think it would be my observation. I was also interested to know how often you do this. Is this weekly, monthly?
We do it weekly. And the reason is because it's actual church. Like, we wouldn't do church once a month, generally. I'm trying to say this is an actual normal service that you can come to. Although the first Sunday we don't do it. We do it all together with our morning service because we didn't want people feeling like it was another church. So we first Sunday of the month, we're all together in the church to help with that. Yeah.
How is the congregation taken to always? So are they always outside? What about elderly?
No, this is an additional service to our morning service. We do it in the afternoon at 4. Rather than the morning. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. We don't always go outside.
You have church and then you have this.
No, this is church.
Yeah,
so
you have church.
that's the key thing. Yeah, I have I have 2 services.
Yeah. So you therefore could potentially split up. For example, that's worrying me a bit. The elderly who want to be in church as they would see it, or just practically speaking, they're too cold. We have services like Rogation where some people can't wander around, and they're sitting there waiting for us to join. How does that work?
I'm trying to hit everyone, so we have an inside service every week, so they can come to that.
Yeah. Is it divisive though? I'm asking you a slightly creative question, but I could see that would be a bit of an issue.
We did have
Vegetable Church was so popular with families, they all went to that.
This is what I'm thinking.
Which was sad, but this is why we brought them back together for the morning. So once a month we're all together, which is important. We still do have kids in the morning as well, but so you have to judge what's the benefit. The benefit was we were getting loads of new families. Yeah.
I'm really curious as to what was, if you like, the initial hook that started the ball rolling or started the whole process going to build this fantastic percentage of your local population. I mean, it's staggering to get 25 young people into a service like that.
What was the hook for them?
Yeah, how did you
I
start
can't
bringing
think of COVID.
outside?
I'll be honest, COVID helped because there was nothing else they could do. And at the time, like scouts weren't running, nothing was running, and the church was running. So it was, and plus the Lord was working, obviously, in their hearts. I mean, I'll be honest, some of them who are coming along, they wouldn't yet describe themselves as Christians.
That's what fascinates me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
It's fun.
Just because it's fun. It's fun. It's the community element. They want their kids to be out in nature. They want their kids to get good morals. And so it all sort of feeds into that, and the kids love it. Yeah, you were gonna.
I'm totally deaf, so I may have missed you saying something about this, and I apologise if I've got it wrong. But do you have awkwardness with having to get people CRB, what is, child or criminal record stuff, so that people can volunteer for these activities involving children?
Yeah, everyone needs to be. It's called DBS now, and everyone is, and they have to do their safeguarding training as well.
And did that make it more complicated to get volunteered, or was it quite quick getting enough people checked to help with?
Yeah, it's quite quick. I mean, it's just a faff to do, administratively wise, but it's just what we have to do now.
I think just that related to one of the comments you made. I mean, in the dreaded new age of risk assessments, I think that is always the important thing if you're going to have fires or whittling or whatever. I think it's okay to do it, but I think that it's a question of somebody who's competent to do a risk assessment and think what are those risks and how do we mitigate them, so that if you're no, indeed it can be, but I think that I think the important thing is to be able to say, well, we did look at those risks and we considered them, and this was what we did. And then I think if you've done that, then I think you can go ahead with quite a degree of confidence.
But if someone is really keen on this, tell them there is training available, and you can get accredited for these things, because they'll probably love that.
Check your first aid kit.
Yeah, you've got to have first aid kit.
Can I just make another observation, really? Because the outdoor space is very important, and you could look at it in terms of landscaping and how you're setting up your space is important, what you've got available to you. And obviously churchyards, one doesn't tend to think of terms of landscaping because the DAC would never allow you to landscape a churchyard. But if you've got grey soil, like one person mentioned they had a lot of chalk, it does open up the possibility of landscaping. You're not allowed to take it away, so you may as well consider the possibility of creating a platform or some other space which could then be used within the churchyard for this kind of activity or purpose. So your creation of space is important. As someone else mentioned, until we created the space, Edward was mentioning, you create the space and then things happen, and potentially with that chalk or whatever you've got spoiled from the grave, I said it could be done in one of our churchyards, create a platform, and it's always the viewing area, but just a comment.
Yes, there's huge potential for doing a bit of landscaping if you can. We did do quite a bit of stuff. Thank you.
Okay.
That's time.
Oh, well, again, just thank you so much. We sure appreciate it.